What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors walks into what should have been a routine morning talk show? Appearance only to be ambushed by a host, dead set on manufacturing headlines? What you're about to see is the explosive moment that sent Matt Damon storming off the View set, leaving Joy Behar scrambling to justify herself to a stunned studio audience. This isn't your typical celebrity interview gone sideways. This is a textbook example of how personal agendas can obliterate professional boundaries in minutes. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop your thoughts in the comments, because this clash is one you'll want to talk about. Matt Damon had shown up to The View to promote his latest environmental documentary, a passion project he'd poured 3 years into. As he settled into the familiar curved desk, adjusting his mic with the effortless calm of someone who sat through hundreds of interviews, he expected the usual, a few friendly questions about his family, his upcoming work, maybe a touch of light political banter. Whoopi Goldberg, Sarah N., and Alyssa Farah Griffin greeted him warmly, genuinely curious about his film. Joy Behar, however, radiated a very different kind of energy. From the moment the cameras started rolling, her demeanor was sharp, almost predatory. She didn't even wait for the introductions to end before firing her first shot. "So, Matt," she began, her tone dripping with sugary venom, "you're here to talk about saving the environment. Yet you own multiple massive homes with carbon footprints bigger than entire neighborhoods. Isn't that a little hypocritical?" The question blindsided Matt, not because he hadn't heard the criticism before, but because of the outright hostility in Joy's delivery. The other host shifted uncomfortably, already sensing trouble. "Well, Joy," Matt replied calmly, "it's actually a fair question. All my properties run on renewable energy, and the documentary addresses that criticism directly. We can't let perfect be the enemy of good." Joy wasn't interested in nuance. "That sounds like Hollywood spin to me," she snapped. "You fly around the world on private jets lecturing regular people about carbon emissions. How do you sleep at night telling people to sacrifice while you live like a king?" Whoopi stepped in, trying to reel the conversation back to sanity, but Joy brushed her off with a dismissive wave. "No, this is exactly what we should be talking about," she insisted, her voice rising with indignation. "I'm tired of celebrities lecturing everyone else while exempting themselves from the rules. Matt, you made over $20 million last year. How many solar panels could that money have bought for low-income families instead of funding another vanity project?" Matt's jaw tightened, but he stayed composed. "Joy, I understand the frustration. But what you're doing is exactly the kind of divisive rhetoric that keeps us from having real conversations. The documentary highlights families from all backgrounds who are making genuine change. Divisive rhetoric." Joy cut in with a bitter laugh. "That's rich coming from someone who supports politicians who've blocked environmental legislation for years. You can't have it both ways, Matt." Sarah tried to shift the conversation back toward the film, but Joy shut her down with a glare cold enough to crack glass. "Matt, yes or no?" Joy demanded. "Do your lifestyle choices align with the message you're preaching?" Matt took a slow breath, visibly fighting to maintain his professionalism. "Joy, you're trying to reduce a complex global issue to a simple gotcha moment. Yes, I live a privileged life. And yes, I try to use that privilege responsibly." "The documentary shows ordinary people making extraordinary changes," Matt continued, trying to steer the conversation back on track, "and that's what I want to focus on." "There it is," Joy snapped triumphantly, jabbing a finger toward him like a prosecutor who'd just landed a conviction. "You admit you live a privileged life, but you won't admit that privilege comes with responsibility. You won't admit that maybe, just maybe, you should be doing more than making documentaries that make you feel good." A ripple of murmurs spread through the audience. The tension was thick enough to hear. Alyssa Farah Griffin attempted to jump in with a question about the film's production, but Joy sliced her off mid-sentence. "I'm not done," Joy declared, her voice edged with genuine anger. "Matt, look into that camera and tell our viewers why they should listen to environmental advice from someone who burns more fossil fuels in a month than they do in a year." For the first time, Matt's composure slipped. His eyes sharpened as he turned fully toward her. "You know what, Joy?" he said, irritation creeping into his voice. I came here in good faith to talk about work that actually highlights real climate solutions, but instead of a real conversation, you've chosen to turn this into a personal attack. That's not journalism, it's performance. Joy's eyes lit up, delighted. It was the reaction she'd been fishing for. Performance? She shot back. Interesting word coming from an actor. Tell me, Mattis, your environmental activism just another role you're playing for the cameras? The question hovered heavily in the air. Matt's expression hardened from annoyed to genuinely furious. Whoopi covered her face with her hands, mortified. That's completely out of line, Matt said, his voice steeled. You're questioning my sincerity about issues I've been working on for over 15 years, long before it was trendy in Hollywood. That's not just unprofessional, it's insulting. Joy only smirked, leaning back with the satisfaction of someone who believed they'd won. Insulting? What's insulting, she said, is watching wealthy celebrities lecture working families about carbon footprints while living in mansions big enough for 50 people. What's insulting is pretending to care about the planet while you profit from industries destroying it. That's enough, Whoopi said sharply, trying to regain control. Joy? Personal vendetta? Joy snapped, turning on her co-host. Since when is holding public figures accountable a vendetta? This is exactly why they get away with whatever they want, because shows like ours let them. That was the breaking point. Matt shoved back his chair and stood up abruptly, the legs scraping against the floor with a harsh, echoing screech. The entire studio fell silent. You want to talk about consequences? He said, his voice low but burning. Let's talk about the consequences of the cynical, destructive rhetoric you're pushing right now. Oh, please, Joy scoffed, rolling her eyes. Save the righteous indignation for your next movie role. You're not a victim here, Matt. You're a privileged white man who doesn't like being called out. The racial jab hit him like a punch. His face tightened and the studio collectively froze, breath held. Are you serious right now? He asked, voice trembling with restrained anger. You're going to make this about race? You're going to drag a conversation about environmental policy into some kind of identity politics gotcha moment? Joy's smile widened. She smelled blood. I'm just pointing out the obvious, Matt, she said. People who look like you who have your resources only cry foul when you're criticized.
Oh.
But when regular people face consequences, suddenly that's fine. Sarah Ann looked like she wished she could sink through the floor. Alyssa was signaling frantically to the producers. On set, the air felt combustible, like one wrong sentence might ignite the whole room. The studio audience was growing, increasingly restless, murmurs rising, few people even getting up to leave. You're incredible, Matt said, shaking his head slowly. You're actually trying to twist this into something it isn't, because you can't defend your own behavior. You invited me here under false pretenses. Joy, you never intended to talk about the documentary or the environmental issues it raises. You just wanted a spectacle. For a split second, the righteous facade on Joy's face cracked, revealing something colder. False pretenses? She scoffed. Matt, the only false thing here is your entire public persona. You want people to see you as this thoughtful, socially conscious actor, but the moment someone asks you tough questions, you collapse like a house of cards. Tough questions? Matt's voice rose for the first time since the interview began. Joy, you haven't asked a single substantive question about environmental policy, climate science, or solutions. All you've done is launch personal attacks and try to score political points. The word attacks hit a nerve. Joy's face flushed, her voice sharpening to a shrill edge. Attacks. Did you just call me a bully, Matt? I've been doing this job longer than you've been making films that matter. I've interviewed presidents, world leaders, Nobel Prize winners. Then maybe you should start acting like it, Matt shot back. Because right now you're acting like a shock jock chasing viral moments instead of actual conversation. Whoopi tried again to salvage the crumbling interview. Okay, everyone needs to take a breath here. We're way off track, but Joy was past the point of reason. Her professionalism had evaporated. No, Whoopi. I want to hear Matt explain how asking legitimate questions about his credibility is suddenly bullying. I want to hear why he thinks he should be immune from criticism just because he's famous. Matt turned from her and addressed the cameras directly. Bypassing the circus entirely, I came here to talk about a documentary highlighting real families. making real changes in their communities. Instead, I've been subjected to personal attacks that have nothing to do with environmental issues and everything to do with generating controversy for ratings. There he goes again, Joy said, rolling her eyes, playing the victim. Matt, you're sitting on a platform that reaches millions. You use it to promote your projects while claiming moral superiority. If you can't handle being questioned, maybe you shouldn't be here. You're absolutely right, Matt said, his voice going suddenly calm, deadly calm. Maybe I shouldn't be here. In fact, I know I shouldn't. He reached for his microphone pack, peeling it off as the other hosts stared in horror. The audience fell completely silent, sensing they were witnessing something unprecedented. Matt, please, Sarah N pleaded, leaning forward. Don't let it end like this. But Joy couldn't stop herself. She had to land one more blow. That's right, Matt. Run away when the questions get too hard. Very environmental of you wasting everyone's time. Matt froze mid-motion. Slowly, he turned back toward Joy, his expression like molten steel. The silence in the room turned eerie anticipatory. You know what, Joy? He said quietly, fury simmering beneath the surface. You want to talk about wasting time? Let's talk about how you spent the last 15 minutes tearing down someone who's actually trying to make a difference, instead of discussing solutions that could help people. Let's talk about how you've turned what should have been an educational discussion into a personal demolition campaign. Joy somehow took this as encouragement. Spare me the sanctimonious lecture, she said. You're not an environmental savior. You're a celebrity who found a cause that makes him feel important. And you're a talk show host who's forgotten your job is supposed to be informing people, not attacking them. Bot snapped. Do you want to know what I plan to discuss today? A family in Ohio who cut their energy use by 70% using community-led techniques. A teacher in Detroit who started a garden program feeding hundreds of kids while teaching sustainability. Joy rolled her eyes. More Hollywood feel-good stories. That's exactly my point. You cherry-pick heartwarming examples and ignore the bigger picture. The bigger picture? Matt's voice rose again. Joy, you haven't asked a single question about policy, about science, about renewable energy, about anything that would actually inform your viewers. All you've done is attack my character because you think it makes good television. Whoopi made one last desperate attempt. Matt, maybe we could reset and talk about the actual content of the documentary, but Joy cut her off. Blazing Whoopi. Stop trying to protect him. Matt, if you really cared about these issues, Joy said, leaning forward, you'd be using your platform to push for real systemic change, not making vanity documentaries that win you applause at film festivals. Matt laughed. But there was zero humor behind it. Systemic change, he echoed. Joy, do you know what that actually looks like? It looks like the renewable energy legislation I've been lobbying for in Washington for the last 3 years. It looks like the micro-grant program I helped launch that's funded more than 200 community sustainability projects. But you didn't bother researching any of that before dragging me onto your show, did you? For the first time all morning, Joy's confidence faltered just for a second. But instead of stepping back, she doubled down. Anyone can throw money at problems, Matt. That doesn't make you an expert on environmental policy. Anyone can throw gotcha questions around to stir controversy, Matt snapped. That doesn't make you a journalist. You've had 30 minutes with someone who has spent years working on these issues, and instead of educating your viewers, you've used every second to grandstand and attack. That's not just unprofessional, it's irresponsible. Joy's cheeks burned crimson as her voice rose. Don't you dare lecture me about responsibility, you hypocritical movie star. You live in a bubble of wealth and privilege, and you have the audacity to come on my show acting like some kind of environmental hero. Your show? Matt repeated, stunned. Joy, this isn't your show. This is The View, and unless I'm mistaken, you're one of several hosts. Yet somehow you've spent this entire interview acting like you're the only person on this set who matters, talking over your colleagues and turning what should have been a discussion into a personal takedown. Other hosts looked mortified. Sarah N stared at the desk. Alyssa Farrah Griffin seemed to be shrinking into her chair. Even Whoopi Goldberg looked unsure how to reel the moment back. But Joy wasn't done. I'm the only one here asking the hard questions that need to be asked. These other ladies want to treat you like royalty. I'm not impressed by fame or fortune. Hard questions? Matt repeated. Joy, you haven't asked one. You've made accusations. You've taken personal shots. You've tried to manufacture drama. But you haven't asked a single thing that challenges viewers to think critically about environmental issues or inspires them to act. Joy abruptly stood, mirroring Matt's earlier posture. You know what, Matt? I think our viewers can finally see who you really are. They can see past your carefully managed public image to the entitled celebrity who melts down the moment he's challenged. Matt stared at her for a long, chilling moment. When he spoke, his voice was calm, dangerously calm. Joy, you're absolutely right about one thing. Your viewers can definitely see who someone really is today. They can see a host who invited a guest on under false pretenses, who chose personal destruction over real dialogue, and who cares more about viral moments than meaningful conversation. He finished removing his microphone and set it gently on the table. They can see someone who had the chance to discuss solutions to one of the most urgent challenges of our time and instead made the entire segment about themselves. Joy opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her jaw simply worked, wordless and stunned. Matt turned to the other hosts with a polite nod. Whoopee, Sarah, Elysium, sorry you had to watch this unfold. I have immense respect for what the View is supposed to represent. I truly am. Then he looked directly into the camera. To anyone watching who actually wants to learn about practical, actionable steps to fight climate change, the documentary premieres next month on multiple streaming platforms. The information is there for anyone who's interested in having a constructive conversation, not just creating chaos. Matt walked toward the edge of the set. That's when Joy let out one last desperate swing. That's right, Matt. Just walk away when someone finally holds you accountable. Matt stopped, turned, and delivered the final blow. Joy, accountability would mean taking responsibility for turning what could have been an educational conversation into a personal attack session. Accountability would mean explaining to your viewers why you chose controversy over content. But something tells me self-reflection has never been your strong suit. With that, Matt Damon walked off the View set, leaving Joy Behar standing alone, visibly rattled as the studio sat in stunned silence. The other hosts looked like they wished they could vanish. The cameras kept rolling just long enough to capture the realization washing over Joy. Her attempt to create a viral ambush had detonated spectacularly. On her, she didn't look triumphant. She looked exposed, petty, unprofessional, and completely outclassed by the man she had tried to tear down. What did you think of this explosive showdown? Was Joy Behar completely out of line? Or should celebrities expect this level of aggression from daytime hosts? Drop your thoughts below. And don't forget to subscribe for more behind-the-scenes moments the mainstream media doesn't want you to see.